Welcome to Investors Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've had a lot of rules change in our system over the last 20-odd days. And on this show, we're going to try and answer all of the questions you have. Any question at all, email ID is at the bottom of your screen. You can also reach me and Virendra on Twitter. Feel free to get in touch. Over the next half hour, we'll first tell you how the amendments to the IT Act will impact you, if at all, and should you be concerned. In our product review, we look at the DSPBR Micro Cap fund, and we'll help a young investor start investing on the show. All right, let me bring in Virendra Kumar. Virendra, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start straight off before we talk about anything else. We have to acknowledge the changes in our system and the new normal that we're living with, which is the lack of cash in our pockets. But there's a lot more cash in the banking system, and the harsher penalty for tax evaders. Now, we saw, and this happens rarely, an amendment to the IT Act. And this is what the amendment is. Unaccounted cash and deposits will have to pay a tax of 50%. Now, anything that has not been declared by the 30th of December will have to pay a tax of nearly 85%. Declarants have to put 25% of the funds that they have declared into a special investment, which will be locked in for 4 years and will generate zero interest. Now, we're being told that 25% interest-free deposit scheme will be used by the government and by the Prime Minister to, help people in rural areas and to work for the poor. Virendra, let's go over this one by one. When we say 50% of declared amount, is this money that I might have had at home as an emergency fund that I'm putting now into my bank account? Will that attract 50% tax? Will I lose half of it to tax?
Yes, if you choose to, if you choose to volunteer that, this is a money which you can't really account for, or you earned it at a point when you didn't really, you should have paid taxes and you have not been. But if you are able to defend it with some evidence that, I have come across situation where there could be a situation where somebody has been saving something like 50,000-70,000 rupees annually. And that has translated into an accumulation of about 1 million rupees. And that is for the daughter's wedding, and that is, kept in the locker. It has not earned any money. I don't know how to really clarify this, because there won't be an evidence. The tax fellows will ask you that, this is this accumulation. But if you're able to put it forward that, what is the family and, the context, and, this is all your accumulation in your lifetime, and you have been a homemaker, you have been keeping this money. And this is a very legitimate situation. Clarification that has come on this is very straightforward. If you have 10 lakh rupees, 5 lakh rupee will be penalty and surcharge, and 2.5 lakh rupee goes towards in that interest-free scheme. And rest of the money you get going. But one important thing which people should take note of is that this is not of course you become tax compliant. You will get 25% of your liquidity in a form with which you will have all the flexibility. But that does not give you immunity against any criminal thing that would have criminality involved in this, because money derived by way of extortion in any form, whether it is real extortion or, if it is actually in the form of bribes or anything, that doesn't give you an immunity from that. And this looks reasonably fair, because, IDS was at 45% and the last date was September 30th.
Well, Virendra, technically, and here's the question we've been receiving from a few of our viewers, technically, the financial year is not over. So, for example, if we take the example of the 10 lakh rupees that you said that you put into the bank account, it's very possible that someone can declare that I've been working as a freelancer for the last few months, and this is the money that I have received from catering parties or from doing something or the other. Even if this is a homemaker we're referring to, I bake cakes or whatever it is, to show that this money I have received for doing part-time work, which I am now depositing into my bank account and declaring before the end of the year in my financial statement. Isn't that technically allowed? Will that then be construed as, money that has not been declared?
Up to 2.5 lakh rupees in one financial year, absolutely no issue. But money over that, you will have to provide some evidence that how you have acquired this over a period of time, and why you have and why you have kept it all in cash and not bothered to be part of the formal economy. But I think there will be a lot of legitimate situations where you will have people who have accumulated 10 lakh rupees worth of cash. It will be lying with them. They may not have a job. They may not be able to defend it with clarity. They run the risk.
All right, so we keep an eye on the changes for you. Virendra, another change that we saw happen this week was in our banking system. Now, we understand that the RBI has increased the CRR from 4% to 100% to arrest the possibility of falling interest rates. I just want to understand from you, obviously the RBI has to make sudden moves at this point because there's so much cash coming into the system to make sure that the interest rates stay at a certain level. Where do you believe the interest rates are going to go? Because that technically affects a lot of our investments. Anyone who's in a debt fund or in a fixed deposit or is using a recurring deposit or any other kind of small savings has to worry about the fact that interest rates might be on their way down. Debt funds will be the only thing that actually benefit from lowering interest rates. How low do you think interest rates are going to go? And do you think the RBI is going to have to continue to work to sort of prop up rates to make sure that they don't fall unnaturally?
So all that RBI has done is, providing 100% cash reserve ratio provision is that, funds, banks can't really provide that, and otherwise the returns will collapse, and just to maintain normalcy in the marketplace. As far as interest rates direction, I think it's almost like calling the market that what happen will at what pace. But one thing I'm sure that the direction is very clear. Interest rates will come down for a variety of reasons. One is the systemic liquidity available in the market that has come into the bank, and that is a part of it, a reasonable part of it, will continue to lie with the banks in the first place. The other is that the government finances will provide government ample leeway. That rates will come down, inflation will definitely come down, and that itself will drive that. So one thing I'm very confident that interest rates will come down. How low can it get? I think in 2.5 years. It's very difficult to predict what exactly will happen. Of course, monetary policy is not very far off, but I would guess that interest rates can get down to historical low levels in India once again. And that could be as low as 6.5%.
Well, one very quick question, Dhirendra, and here I am going to ask you to speculate a little bit. Given the kind of changes in the IT Act, the kind of changes in taxation, and the possibility of the government being able to raise a fair amount of money through this scheme, do you believe that we might be in for a cut in our tax slabs or our tax rates in the upcoming budget in February?
Yes, I'm very hopeful. And, that is going to be one of the unintended of course, it might be intended too. But now I'm reasonably confident that that is something which has to give in. Not only that, I feel that, the economy will go through a short-term deceleration, and the government will do something significant to revive the confidence once again. But a drastic reduction in individual taxation rates is something which I'm reasonably confident of.
Let's take another question here. Shiva has written in. He says he's considering banks have more money in their systems. They'll start reducing interest rates on savings accounts or fixed deposits. Where should he begin investing for the short and long term? Do traditional mutual funds and short-term funds continue to give better returns? So let's focus on fixed deposits, Dhirendra. Obviously, deposit rates have already begun coming down. Even though we haven't seen lending rates come down, deposit rates have begun coming down. So for anybody who relies on fixed deposits, it's time to look elsewhere, isn't it?
Absolutely. But, you can't really escape the lower rates in future. And, this is going to really hurt the people who entirely depend on interest income or, predictable income from their investments made, even in either in deposits or, senior citizen savings scheme or even mutual funds. Because debt funds will also, the return on debt funds over a period of time will also come down. The only difference in mutual fund is that one time, as and when the interest rates come down, as we see right now, that you see while the interest rates have come down gradually a little bit by 50 basis point, but the bond funds have, gained substantially. If you look at the income fund return, it's in the region of, 13 to 14% over the last 1 year. So if rates come down further, these funds will actually have a one-time benefit. But over a period of time, the return from these bond funds will also settle down, will come down to a point. And, these funds also get hurt when interest rates go up. They actually lose, you lose a small capital at that point. So I would say that in the short run, there will be an opportunity in debt fund that you can optimize your return as compared to a deposit. For a holding of over 3 years, it will also be more tax efficient. And long-term, choice, I don't think there is any dispute that what has happened and what is happening, and if interest rates come down, if economy gets better organized, if we become better compliant, if the government has more resources, the government fiscal looks better, the only way the market can go is up. So, I think it only reinforces our belief in the long-term outlook further, for equities.
All right, so for everyone who depends on interest rates for income, whether you're a senior citizen, if you use the post office savings, the PPF, remember the PPF rate is set every year. It is not a permanent fixed rate forever. And those who use fixed deposits, you are now going to have to look up away from these traditional products to maybe some equity-linked products in order to improve what will be your return or to maintain the return that you've been getting over the last couple of years. That's something that we'll focus on in the coming weeks, and we'll tell you how to do that. Quick break on Investor's Guide. On the other side, we'll look at the DSP BlackRock Micro Cap Fund. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Investor's Guide. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for our product review. We're looking at the DSP BlackRock Micro Cap Fund. Avan is here to give us numbers. Avan.
Thanks, Faye. This week, we take a look at the DSP BlackRock Micro Cap Fund. With close to 4,264 crores as assets under management, this fund has been a stellar performer over the long term. Let's quickly take a look at its performance in the last 5 years. The red line is the fund and the blue line its benchmark. You'll see that the fund's performance has been better than its benchmark and category over the last 5 years. The fund was at its best in the year 2014 with a return of 102%. While the fund is the best performer when compared to its peers like most microcaps, you'll see that the fund takes a big hit when compared to its peers in the bear phase of the market. Despite being the best in its category, this fund does not invest in the top 300 companies. With a 4-star rating against its name, the fund has had a return of 17% in the last 1 year. So is this a fund that you should be investing in? Let's find out. With that, it's back to you, Faye.
All right, Avan, thank you for the update. Dhirendra, DSP BlackRock Micro Cap is a 4-star fund with 4,200 crore rupees assets under management. But given the market we're seeing right now, there's a fair amount of risk that's going to come in on the micro and the small cap sectors. How do you expect this fund to sort of withstand the volatility that we're bound to see?
It will be volatile. It will also be constrained because, it is important to understand that what this fund does, what kind of company it invests in. By its design, it is not supposed to invest in the top 300 companies by capitalization. So it is bound to invest in the relatively smaller companies at all times. I think within that limitation, I think it has done an excellent job. It has been an outstanding fund. It has been able to reduce the risk of a micro cap fund substantially by its, by its selectivity. Most of the time, it has had a portfolio which no other fund had, or most of the positions no other fund had. So I think there is no doubt that there isn't a better fund with this kind of focus and, of course, the proven credential. But it's very important to understand that you can have the finest of fund, the best of things that is visible there. But this fund, you should understand what can happen to micro cap in a bad phase. This fund lost the most in the post demonetization market turmoil. If you look at 2008, your 15 rupee. Soon after the fund's launch, the NAV was little over 15 rupee, and by end of 2008. It was back to less than 5 rupees or little less than 5 rupee. So you have to understand that this is a fund which in the worst of times can actually lose 2/3 of the value, which looks very scary. Most investors have experienced only one side of the market, that they invested in a micro cap and it has done very well, and it has we have seen a little bit of hiccup, but never a big blow. If you don't have, and most investors the risk visits you when you least expect it. And that is what we saw 2 weeks back. But I don't think it is as much of a problem right now. But this is an expensive portfolio. You have to see that this is not the kind of fund, as we keep insisting, this is a great micro cap fund, great small cap fund, done exceedingly well. You can't get better than this. But this is not a kind of fund which is for everybody. If you are investing for the first time, one should be in a balanced fund. Investing for the first time, need to save tax, consider a tax saving fund. investing for the first, have invested and want to venture with equity, understand a little bit, go with a multi-cap fund. This fund is meant for somebody who wants to, maximize his return, has a long-term orientation, will have the discipline to stick through the full market cycle. If you are that disciplined investor and you will not be unnerved by 2/3 of your value accumulated worth disappearing in 3 months' time, once in a while, then only you should consider investing in such a fund.
Narendra is saying that it's a good fund if you want a micro cap fund. It's one of the best that's available. But the question you need to ask yourself is, do you want a micro cap fund? Are you the kind of investor who can handle the volatility that comes with a fund that avoids the top 300 companies by market capitalization? If you have the heart and the stomach for that kind of volatility, then this is the fund for you. But if you're a beginner or you're someone who will stay up at night based on the value of your portfolio, then you should not be investing in this fund. Narendra, what's your star rating for this fund right now?
Among small caps, it is one among, it has been part of our, the fund that we say one should be buying for aggressive investor. I'm, inclined to assign it a 5-star. And, I'm very impressed despite the increase in its net assets, the size. The fund has navigated its growth very, very nicely. So I'm inclined to give it a 5-star rating.
A 5-star rating there for the DSP BlackRock Micro Cap Fund. Remember, 5 stars are very hard to come by on this show. Narendra, quick question. Manoj Paul has written in. He wants to invest in this fund. He's not sure whether he should go with the direct option or the regular option. He also says he's using it to solve his money-related issue for the near future. So I have another problem with this question. If you're looking at a short-term money-related issue or something that needs to come up in the next 1 year, given the market that we're seeing right now, I'm not sure he should be using this fund at all. And if he is using the fund, then should he be using direct or should he be using regular?
No, of course, it is important to understand that what do you, if you're asking this question and if you're able to understand this, I think a regular plan, if you're seeking it from an advisor and an advisor tells you why you should not be investing your short-term money in a micro-cap fund, I think you should buy a regular plan and go to an advisor. If you are able to understand this and you are willing to, make that investment and do things yourself very efficiently, and it can be done for DSP BlackRock funds because their online facilitation is very impressive. A couple of clicks and things happen. So from that standpoint, direct plans actually turn out to be a little cheaper. Let me give you an example, particularly with, DSP BlackRock Micro Cap. If you would have invested 10,000 rupees a month over the past 3 years, in your regular plan, it will be about 5.8 lakh rupees, and in the direct plan, it will be 10,000 rupees more, about 9,500 rupees more. So this is the kind of difference that can come with your 10,000 rupee monthly investment, which will accumulate, which will translate into 3.6 lakhs investments. This is the difference in growth. That is despite the fact that DSP BlackRock's direct plans are not cheap. The fund has turned big. The regular plan still costs 2.25% or little over that, and the direct plan expense is also 1.7%, which to my understanding is quite high, given the scale of fund, because given the size of fund, and these till the regulatory diktat comes in. Of course, this will all be legal and legitimate, but and the funds are allowed to do that. But I would imagine, I would expect that fund expenses should come down as fund gets very large.
All right, I'm going to squeeze in one quick question. Matthew has also written in. Matthew George says he's been working as a doctor overseas. He's planning to move back to India post his retirement. Well, welcome back to India, Matthew. He says he has no liabilities. He has a home of his own. And he saved 1.8 crore rupees in nationalized bank deposits, earning tax-free interest of 8%. These are obviously NRE deposits. He says will mature in the next 3 years. What should he do about his investments? Well, the good thing is, Narendra, if he's locked it in for the next 3 years, then he's not going to feel the pinch of the interest rate movement that will happen. What would you advise him to do? 1.8 crore rupees. Should he be diversifying it a little bit or leaving it in those fixed deposits?
No, I think he requires, more careful planning. That what will be his source of income post-retirement? What is the likely scale of expenses, one-time and regular expenses? And work on a cash flow, because this requires greater detail in terms of, he should not only be investing to derive regular income, but there will be need for, one-time initial investment as he relocates to India. And then in making sure that he invests in a manner that he's not only getting the income today or for a couple of years, but the worth of capital is protected in a manner that it will be able to provide him, inflation adjusted income rise. Because today you can do, thinking that, you can manage your monthly expenses with 50,000 rupees. Maybe 3 years from now, 50,000 rupees may not be enough. And do you have all other variables in place in terms of, it depends on variety of things which needs careful planning. So sit with an advisor or do some little bit of reading and think about it. And the plan has to be simple. I don't think he needs a very complicated plan, but it has to be guided entirely by his specific situation.
Well, like we keep saying on the show, irrespective of how old you are or what you're investing for, you should remember always to choose the investment based on the goal. If the goal is 2 years away, 3 years away, 10 years away, that will command what kind of investment you should be choosing, not technically what's going on in the market. One last question. 26-year-old Praveen has written in from Bangalore. He's been investing in the Axis long-term equity and the Birla Sun Life tax saver. He also has 1 lakh rupees invested in our aggressive portfolio. He's recently begun investing in the NPS. He wants to know if he should invest in equity for better returns. When I'm assuming equity, when he says equity, he's talking about, he's talking about equity funds, Dhirendra. What would you recommend he does? Both of his ELSS funds are good funds. He can continue making those investments. And the NPS is an added tax benefit, which is always welcome. What should be his next move?
I think, if tax saving is the trigger, then he should not be investing in NPS. Otherwise, too, somebody who has gotten used to equity funds and have the discipline to be at it, and will also have the discipline of not withdrawing his money on for any reason for a long period of time, then one should carry on with a mutual fund. I'll tell you the reason. For the first 1.5 lakh rupee, I think you should definitely consider, unless there is a provident fund contribution which is mandatory deduction from your salary. The rest of the 80C entitlement should be exhausted by a tax saving fund. Then comes the choice that 50,000 rupee extra can be invested in NPS, which will get you the incremental tax break. That 50,000 is also deducted from your income, which means that you save, on that 50,000 rupee, you save 15,000 rupees of taxes, because the 50,000 knocked off from your income. The other thing is that if you invest 35,000 rupees every year in an equity fund as compared to investing 50,000 rupees in NPS, which one will be, this is a choice one has to make. Will you be better off with 50,000 rupees investment in NPS as compared to 35,000 rupees investment in an equity fund and after paying the taxes? You will be much better off with an equity fund, because equity funds can invest completely, the whole amount is in equity, whereas the NPS, the maximum is 50%. The other thing is that your money will get locked in NPS till the end. You can't take your money out till your retirement, and even after that, you can only take out 40%. So given these, and your equity fund investment will be not only, it will be growing efficiently, all the returns will be completely tax-free. And you will be at absolute liberty. And after 3 years, a normal general equity fund is very much liquid too. So in case of extreme emergency, you can take it out. So if you have the discipline, by all means, go ahead with an equity fund. From return, complication, complexity, lack of flexibility, I would say that, somebody who has gotten used to mutual fund and can carry on with that, don't consider NPS as a tax-saving investment even.
All right, that brings us to the end of this show. Takeaways, what have we learned this time? If you're investing in equity or you're investing in funds for the first time, choose a balanced fund. It'll ease you into the process. Dip your toe into the water first and get used to the temperature. The DSP BlackRock Micro Cap Fund is a great fund if you can handle the volatility. And if you're a smart investor and you can choose your own funds, it's always helpful to use the direct option. It will increase your returns. But if you need advice, then consider paying for that advice using the regular option. Dhirendra, thank you so much for answering our questions this week. We look forward to sitting down with you again next week. That's a wrap on Investor's Guide. Contact details are on your screen. Call us if you need anything.